Joel, thank you for joining us today.
Sure, Lisa.
Our goal is to better understand the Herschend Family Entertainment Corporation, our mission, our vision, and our core values. And you know what's really important to know is that these ideas were not just created, they've been growing for many, many years with our founders, our owners, the Herschend family.
Yep.
Could you tell us something about that?
I would love to, because it's an honor to be part of this company, and I know you feel the same way. But I think what's important for the employees to know is that this company started very humbly, really out of a cave in Branson, Missouri. And Mary and Hugo Herschend leased a cave. It became successful. Then Jack and Pete, their sons, really grew it into a wonderful theme park called Silver Dollar City. But it was humble. It was one building at a time, one attraction at a time. They made mistakes. They, almost didn't make it a few times. And it grew very, very humbly. And I think it's important that employees know that. And I think it's important that they know that we're family owned. We're 100% owned by the Herschend family. We're not some big corporation. And although we have a lot of properties, and that makes us big in one sense, we're very small because it came from a family that cared about their employees, who loved their employees, and knew that if they loved employees, they would love the guests. But as that company kept growing and adding properties around the country, Jack and Pete and the leadership team at the time needed to put this special culture of loving other people into a mission and core value so we could communicate this to everybody, and that's what we're here to talk about.
You know, I've often heard you say that it was built building by building, property by property, and employee by employee, creating a family.
Yeah, it is a family, and it might be hard to understand that as a new employee, but if I can tell you, if an employee watching this has not worked someplace else or hasn't seen other businesses, this is a very unique place. I spent 20 years in the auto industry, seeing the good, the bad, the ugly of leadership. This is a family-run and very loving company. Now, we aren't always perfect to that, but that's what we strive to do. And it is very unique, and it's a very special place.
And the fact then it's encouraged for that love to continue to the guests.
Right. And we'll talk about that a lot more later. But the fact that we talk about loving each other and loving the guest, and because of that, great finances will happen, that's very unique in business today. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Well, let's hear from Jack and Pete.
Let's do it.
Maybe 30, 35 years ago, I got our employees at that time all together in groups of 30 to write our mission statement. And we wrote about 30 mission statements in groups of 30. And then our leadership team got together and blended the best of each of the 30 into what is now the mission statement, starting out with recreate memories worth repeating and ending with we'll do everything with Christian values and ethics. And it's been revised twice, just ever so slightly, a change, a word or two, but it's had tremendous lasting strength in that. And it was just a restatement of that culture that has grown up over 60 years.
Our mission statement, create memories worth repeating, speaks to what we strive to do, how we strive to be. But I think the mission statement all alone is not sufficient. It needs to have the core values that make it come alive. Ben, let me share those with you. We greatly exceed guest expectations. We serve others. We create emotional connections. We constantly improve. All that in a manner that is consistent with Christian values and ethics.
Our vision is to bring families closer together. We bring families closer together.
Yeah.
Our mission is to create memories worth repeating. Now, these are big ideas, Joel. Help us to understand, especially a new employee, how we carry this out in day-to-day.
Well, first of all, you're right. It's a very big idea. And I actually think of it not just a day-to-day job, but a cause. We're here for something very, very important. We all know society's ripping apart. I mean, families have less and less time to spend together. There's lots of pain out there. Everyone watching this video has seen it. And we create environments where families can have that one special day to get away from all that pain and connect together. So I look at what we do as a beautiful cause that makes me really excited to come to work every day. So it is a big idea, but it's also not that complicated. So when employees come to work every day, if they just think, what can I do to create memories worth repeating? What can I do to help bring families closer together? That's really all they have to do. And there's a million different ways we can all do that. They just have to know that that's what leadership wants. That's what ownership wants, is for that to happen. And you know, it's important that everybody thinks this way. Everyone works together to create that environment where a family can be closer together. Not just the frontline employees, all the maintenance workers, the people who work in the parking lot, the people who work in finance. Everybody works together to make this happen. And it's very, very important, and it's very special.
You sound like you believe it.
I love it.
Let's hear from some employees how they live out the mission.
Yeah, because they're the important ones.
This brings us to our first core value. We greatly exceed guest expectations. What does that mean?
Well, it's a high bar, first of all, to greatly exceed guest expectations. But if you don't mind, I'd like to tell a personal story of how I learned this lesson before I even got into business. And it's a lesson I learned from my mom, who's passed away now. But I was in high school, and I was going with my mom to our high school football banquet. And I'm walking down the hall with her, and I'm a senior, and 3 freshmen pass me. And they say, hi, Joel, because they knew me because I was football captain and all that stuff, but I didn't know them. And I kind of gave them the head nod and kept walking with my mom. And she kind of grabbed me, whipped me around the corner, and she never got mad, but she put her finger in my chest. She said, you listen to me, young man. Every time you come into contact with somebody, you have a chance to make their day better or make their day worse. And I don't think you made their day better. And I have never forgotten that moment. But then I came to the company and I realized that Jack and Pete are teaching the same thing that my mom taught me, which is every time you come into contact with a guest, you can either meet their expectation, exceed it, or not exceed it. And we ask all of our employees to at least find out what the guest wants, meet that expectation, but hopefully find out ways to even exceed it. And we know you can't do that every single time, but that's the vision, that's the goal, that's what we aspire to. And I've heard some incredible stories over my years of what our wonderful employees do for our guests. And so I'd like to hear from some of our guests about those stories.
And we know that our guests appreciate our employees. We've seen it, we live it.
Yes.
Let's hear from some of them. Joel, these stories are true and they're terrific.
They are terrific.
But tell us, how is a new employee to live up to these expectations?
It's tough. It's a high bar that we set, but we want new employees to take their training very seriously, to be thorough at it, and to become experts at their job. We want employees to be fast and friendly, which means they need to know what they're doing at whatever their job is. And if they don't know the park or they don't know their attraction and they get asked a question, that's a great opportunity to say, you know, I don't know, but let's go find out together. And when we do that, we can help exceed guest expectations.
But it's also important that there's a support network in place
Absolutely.
and that we help and guide one another. And we see that as we live this out each and every day.
Absolutely.
So let's hear what Pete has to say about that.
That HFE family of the men and women, I'm talking about the guys in the parking lot, and I'm talking about the street characters, and I'm talking about the waiters and busboys and candyman. The list goes on, all of them. That same group of men, that same group of women are the ones who create
the memories that make this company possible. Because unless those memories are created, and they do it, we won't have a repeat business, and therefore we won't have a business. But they are the ones, so yes, pride in who they are and pride in what they continue to do, and not one time, day in, day out. It can be 100 degrees in the shade, or it can be raining and cold in the middle of a festival. And day in and day out, that same group of men and women have continue to create memories that will be worth repeating for generations to come.
Wow, he genuinely believes that.
Yeah, he definitely means it.
If we don't create memories worth repeating, we don't have a business. Joel, how do employees live up to that?
It's a high bar, but if you read our value closely, it also says we have genuinely friendly, caring people who take pride in what they do. The new employees who are here, they wouldn't be here if they're not genuine, if they're not very friendly, if they don't care about high standards, and if they're not performers, they wouldn't be here. We have an elite group of employees, and they're all here because they're special, and we can create that environment. We're all friendly, and if we focus on it, we together will create a memory worth repeating. If one person fails, the rest of us will pick them up, and every day should be a memory worth repeating for our guests. So yeah, I think we can do it.
And it helps that it's fun.
It does help that it's a fun business.
Our next core value. We are consistently pleased to see and hear how our company treats our employees. We serve others. What does that mean?
We serve others. There are two really big ideas behind that Jack and Pete put in place, and I'm trying to keep going. One is that we as a team empower each other. We have a very empowered culture. We want the new employees to do what they need to do to satisfy the guests. And each property will have their own way of doing that, but I want them to know they're empowered to do what they need to do to exceed the guest's expectation. And the second big idea is that we actually teach our leaders to love each other, to love the frontline employees, and then the employees hopefully love the guest. And it's not love the emotion, it's love the verb, it's a behavior. And we actually take the words from 1 Corinthians 13, right out of the Bible, so it's a very timeless principle. And we teach our leaders this, which is very unique in business. Not only do we teach it to them, we hold them accountable to it. And 50% of their rating is around these words of love, what we call B goals. What kind of leader do you want to be? Now, they also have 50% of their rating on their do goals, which we all have in the world today. You have to hit the margin, you have to hit certain sales targets, attendance targets. But it's very unique that our leaders are measured on B goals and do goals. And that makes us a very, very special company.
Let's delve a little bit more into leading with love. You've written a book on it. It's an awesome book. It's called Love Works.
Yes.
And it is now all over the globe. People all over the world are learning about the HFE culture. What do you think of that?
I'm excited about that. It really wasn't the intent originally. When I was on Undercover Boss, we were inundated with letters from all over the world, really, of people who saw a very special company, and they wanted to see and understand how that happened. And so I decided to write Love Works, primarily for a guide for our own leaders, but I thought, well, if other people want to know about it, I'll put it out there. But I have been surprised by the response to it, honestly. In the first month, it sold more than the publisher thought it would sell all year. It's been translated into 3 languages, Korean and Spanish. It's in many different countries now. I get letters all the time of people who have implemented its practices, including other CEOs who have put it in place at their companies. So it's exciting to me that other people are modeling what we do, because I think it'll help make the world a better place. It'll help make business have a better reputation. As somebody who helps others or a company that helps others. So I'm excited about it.
It almost seems like it's given other companies and those within our company permission to lead with love.
Right. I think that's a very important point, that some people perceive love as soft, and so they don't want to talk about it. The way I put it in the book, it's not soft at all. It's the hardest way to lead, because I've come from the General Motors world where it was all just about the numbers. That's actually easier just to focus on that. We focus on how our actions affect our employees, how our actions affect our guests, and the financial results. And that's a more challenging way to lead. And I think you're right. We're giving others in the world permission to lead this way.
Well, let's bring it back internally. Let's bring it back home and talk about how Herschend Family Entertainment leads with love.
Well, besides what I've already talked about, there's a few other things that we really try to focus on. One is always have wholesome family entertainment. We want to own wholesome, so to speak, with everything that we do. And to us, that's leading with love. We also are very generous in our contributions. We give up to, and sometimes more than 10% of our net income to charitable causes. And that's a pretty high figure. The third thing is we're very dedicated to the environment. We were green before it was popular. I mean, our logo in Herschend Entertainment is a leaf of a tree because of how important trees have always been to this company. And there are dozens of examples. I could go on forever on how all of our properties we're committed to the environment and really are. But probably if I had to pick one thing for the employees to remember, one program of how we show we love each other in this company, it's our Share It Forward Foundation. And it's a foundation where the employees give and we match it and we use all those dollars to help employees in need.
Terrific organization, terrific program, Share It Forward. Let's take a minute and hear more about it. Okay, we have a clip to share with you. Pete Herschend talking about some of your habits. Are you ready?
Sure.
It's interesting, Jack refers to Joel and his leadership style, and it has impacted the company. I'm not talking about debits and credits, financial statements. I'm talking about the people side. Joel has a talk that he does now, and he does it extensively, and it sprang out of Undercover Boss. And he talks, and everybody who's taking a look at this video will know what I say when I say love is a verb. That's the thrust of of his talk, but he's walking the talk in his daily life. But he will spend as much time focusing on how are you doing, you leadership team, the people that I work with, and how are you doing, the men and women of the company. It is indicative of that relationship that Joel in this company knows more people by their first name than Jack and Pete know.
That's strong encouragement from Pete.
It is.
You're humble. Many of us who know you are humble. And yet we see you each and every day in our workplace showing how we create emotional connections. You know how to do it. Give us some advice.
Well, I appreciate those words. I think it's important, though, that we know that it's a vision for all of us. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes every day, but we all work together to hold each other accountable to achieve what Jack and Pete have set out. But I think to create emotional connections, it's a very, very high bar. I mean, our first sub point under that is that we want to treat people like members of the family. We want to treat each other and treat the guests like members of the family. That's a really, really high bar. We actually measure that. We ask our guests, do they feel they were treated that way? So that's incredible. And the other thing we try to do is we try to create environments where we have shared experiences. So even in the way we design rides, are the families facing each other? Are we including enough of the family in the ride? And so that's really important. We also want it to always be wholesome, so we know mom can be there and she's going to feel comfortable in it. But again, it's very important for the employees to know they create that emotional connection. And it may seem daunting, but we do have great moment of truth training that we'll get to later that will help give the employee the basics of how to do that.
The final core value, we constantly improve. Now, that implies that there's always room for improvement. Is that true?
Absolutely true. It has to be true because everyone around us is getting better, competition's getting better, so we have to get better. And one core thing we ask across all of our properties is that each property gets better. On whatever metric they're measuring, they get better each year.
Jack Herschend has a favorite story that ties in with this. Let's take a look.
Okay.
About a year after the mission statement was committed to paper, I was in the employees' lounge, which I love because everybody, just street sweeper and president alike, all sit at the same tables. I love that, and you learn so much there. But it was 95 degrees probably, and a 60-ish parking attendant came in, sweat dripping off of his nose. And when he saw me, he came over and he said, "Jack, I want to tell you a story about what happened on the parking lot that is not a memory worth repeating." And I thought, it's working. So if it weren't for the mission statement, you wouldn't identify, you wouldn't understand the problem, and therefore you wouldn't be able to solve it. So the success of a mission statement is partially about buy-in, but it's partially about a measure of how we want to perform our business. And so when it identifies things we're doing wrong, it's working.
It's good to know that the culture and the mission are working. And today, while employees may not be able to meet up with Jack in the break room, they can certainly do their part in meeting the expectation of we constantly improve. Give us some hints on that.
Well, you ask a great question. It's an important one because we want to constantly get better. But it's important for an employee to realize they're going to make mistakes. They're going to get feedback. The important thing is how they handle the feedback. You know, feedback is a gift. And when you look back at the greatest bosses you and I have ever had, they gave you feedback to get better and improve. So it's important to handle that feedback the right way. But it's also really important that the new employee gives us feedback on how we're doing, because we're setting these goals, but we're human. We're going to make mistakes too. So we have to hold each other accountable. And it's important that all the new employees know, my team holds me accountable too. So nobody's perfect, but let's hold each other accountable. And if we do that, we can constantly improve as a company.
Let's talk about the frame we use for these core values. We say we do all things in a manner consistent with Christian values and ethics. Now, that's unusual for a company.
It is.
What does it mean?
Well, let me start, Lisa, with what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that we expect a certain belief system. We know that our employees have a variety of spiritual beliefs, or maybe no spiritual belief at all. That's fine. What we ask for is a certain behavior. We want people to behave a certain way. And when we do that, we can achieve our objectives.
All in a manner consistent with Christian values and ethics. So what does it mean?
Well, if I had to pick one word, it would be love. And we've talked about that a lot. We love each other, and then we love the guest. And we show that through our Lead with Love initiatives. We show it through Share It Forward. We show it through giving 10% of our income away to charitable causes. We show it by being very focused on the environment, being great stewards of our environment. And all those things show that we hopefully are loving other people.
Joel, as our employees consider the mission and the vision and the core values, bottom line, what do you want us to take home?
Sum it all up. Very simply, our vision is to bring families closer together. Our mission is to create memories worth repeating. And every single employee watching this has a very critical part to play in that. That's what I want them to remember.
Thanks, Joel.
You're welcome. Thank you, Lisa.